and I want people to play this album that has any weight that they're carrying or something that's holding back, that's ailing them or suppressing them, to remove that. Cut it out, what's holding it back, and just let go and move on. A lot of people that was trying to break us apart, and we just came together and we crushed anything that like got in our way and that tried to stop us as friends. All right, I just got here to Vegas, almost ran over a hooker, and I'm about to get a little naughty. Let's get a little naughty. So in the city, I got my horns out because I'm horny. All hail the Dark Lord. So fuck you, human. Bye.
Just be worshipped.
You know, every day people try to stop me. You know, they might make up some bullshit in my inbox. Like I just got this message: kill yourself, or you should die, and you're terrible and stuff like that. And then you realize, like, wait a minute, these people don't even fucking know me. They have never experienced me. Their words don't define who I am as a person. Only your actions do. Fear stands for false evidence appearing real. So we are learning this song called Promises that I'm working on that is about, you know, speaking up against anybody who's been in an abusive relationship. And the reason why we name it Promises is because people feel that these promises that you make in a relationship, you're binded by them. And in reality, if it's harming you, if this is really destroying you, you really need to stand up and say something and not be a victim. And so we're creating that, and this is what the song's about.
Suck my dick! To all these motherfuckers that are talking shit.
Anybody else as sick of that bullshit as I am? It's interesting to me, in a time where Blood on the Dance Floor started to gain their popularity, I can think of a good handful of bands that, in my personal opinion, were infinitely better. I'm sorry if that seems like a slight against some of you who were fans of this music in the past, but that's just my personal opinion, and I can't really think of it any other way. Anyhow, welcome back to the channel, guys. Thank you for being here, and today we're going to dive into some stories that were sent to me on my Twitter account after you guys started responding to the last videos that I'd done in regards to Dahvie Vanity. These people reached out to me of their own free will. I asked if they were okay with me sharing their story, and of course most of the individuals who contacted me did want me to talk about this information. So we're gonna go ahead and jump straight into that, and as always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing to the channel, leave me a comment down in the comment section below. If you have similar stories, feel free to share them. But before we get too much further into this, I want to go ahead and say that this is not about me. This is not about trying to white knight or virtue signal for any reason other than just trying to help create some kind of awareness to bring justice to the people that have been wronged by Dahvie Vanity. Obviously, I recognize this video and other videos that I've made related to this topic have landed and recommended. That proves that people have been able to hear these stories that they may not have heard before. Again, this is not about me, it's about other people and hopefully trying to help those other people. So the first story that I have for you comes from an individual by the name of Alana. She reached out to me and asked me if I would discuss this in another video, and her story goes as follows. In the summer of 2012, I discovered the band Blood on the Dance Floor. I was just pushing 13 when I fell in love with the weird lyrics and the electronic sound they had. I was hooked immediately. I was just starting my emo phase and just going into my freshman year. About a year later, the band was going on tour. I begged my mother to let me go, and she said yes. I bought $100 VIPs and invited my best friend Stephanie to join me. The show was in Hartford, Connecticut on September 21st, 2013. It was my first ever concert I would attend. I was excited when the time came around. I mirrored Dahvie's makeup as best as I could at the time of the Blood of the Dance Floor album's release and had my father drop my friend and I off. We showed up early and I met amazing people. I even had a photo of me taken and put into an online newspaper. The time came around when the VIPs were let in to meet the band. My heart was just racing and anxiety was flaring. Javon came in first. I patiently waited for my turn as Jay signed autographs and took photos. When he came up to me, I said hello and told him how much I appreciate him taking the time out of his day to meet us all. He thanked me and told me how sweet that was, gave me a big hug and took a photo with me. About 20 minutes later, Dahvie came in and half the VIPs rushed over and surrounded him. This would be a reoccurring thing at shows that I would later find out. Dahvie's bodyguard told everyone to back up and wait their turns. I stayed where I was when Jay came came in, and when it was Stephanie and I's turn, she immediately started crying. He pulled her into a hug and told her it was okay and started stroking her hair. I just stood there and smiled. Nothing seemed too strange at the time until Stephanie asked him to sign her pant leg. He grabbed her pretty high up under the leg. At the time, we were both 13, naive, and didn't think much of it. Little did I know it would just progress throughout my time as a fan. During the show, Dahvie always waved around multiple dildos in front of half of the underage crowd. In 2014, I attended a show in the summer in New York City, once again being a VIP. This was the Bitchcraft tour. This time I was 14 and dressed in a tutu and a corset. I was pretty busty for a 14-year-old and didn't think much of it. Jay came in first as always and had a normal conversation with me, probably longer than everyone else. I always asked him how he was feeling and stuff like that since Jay always seemed anxious at meet and greets. Then Dahvie came in and once again people swarmed him. I waited in line, and when I got to meet him, a smile grew on his face, almost creepily. He took my poster I got and covered my face as he signed it with my forehead. He then pulled me into a longer than normal hug. He told me that I was his favorite person here, and his bodyguard then said, "Little girl, it's someone else's turn." Dahvie then cut him off and said, "No, let her talk to me, it's okay," and asked to sign my corset right under my breast. I nodded, and he proceeded to do so. During the show, specifically during the song "I'm a Monster," Dahvie was spitting water at people and pouring it on people's heads. The lyric "Super soaker on your chest, let it drip down in your breast" was being sung as he dumped a whole bottle into my cleavage. That same year, I flew to Orlando, Florida in December to attend a show with my friend, the Reckoning Tour. At this time, Dahvie and I have had contact on social media, specifically Twitter, and talked a lot back and forth. He followed my cosplay page and everything. I had free VIPs to this show via Dahvie and much more. During this time, Blood on the Dance Floor had a big cartel site that they sold merch on. I had ordered some necklaces that never showed up. This happened a lot due to people complaining on Twitter that they never got their merch and were scammed out of their money. The meet and greet went the same as always, Jay now recognizing me and asking why the hell I was in Florida, but something was weird when Dahvie never showed up. We waited 2 hours, maybe even 3 for Dahvie to show up. While at this meet and greet, Dahvie was supposedly visiting his mother. We all were getting annoyed and some even walked away to watch other bands. When Dahvie finally showed up, he immediately called me by my name and made me stand and meet fans with him. I was pretty well known as Alana Autopsy in the Blood on the Dance Floor scene kid community, so many people wanted photos with me regardless. I even signed some posters. When the meet and greet was halfway through, Dahvie pulled me into a tight hug while I was wearing a spiked bra that I had bought from Spencer's that said, "Your titties are pointy," and kissed me on the forehead. At the time, he was dating a girl named Madeline who he ended up abusing, and she didn't come out until months after the breakup. This was when I started to get a little weirded out about how close and comfortable he was getting with me. I walked off and kind of ignored it for the rest of the show. Dahvie also texted me happy birthday the very next week. My last show in January of 2016 in New York City was the one I'll never forget. I was late to a show due to NYC traffic. I had texted Marco, who previously asked me to send photos of my chest to draw me naked with Dahvie, and I declined, and I told him I was late. He apparently told Dahvie, and Dahvie held off the meet and greet until I arrived. Dahvie walked into the venue and ran up and hugged me, saying, "I'm so glad you can make it." He was dressed in a pleather suit and carrying a riding crop. This was during the Cruel Pornography tour. I wasn't wearing much but all black and a spiked jacket. I had grown out of my scene phase and wasn't really a big fan of Blood on the Dance Floor anymore, but I wanted to take my friend Bailee to her first concert. Dahvie, during the meet and greet, was hitting a few of us playfully with a riding crop and saying explicit things while doing so. At one point, Dahvie had his arm around my shoulder, and my friend told Dahvie to say something to a kid I was crushing on at the time. He started recording this video that is on my YouTube channel and telling this boy to pop the question and be a man. I said, "'Cause I'm hot," jokingly. That's when Dahvie added, "Alana is babe as fuck."
Enrique, don't play yourself, okay? Don't play yourself, Enrique. Pop the question. Be a man. Be a man.
Date
Man
Alana! Because I'm hot.
Alana is babe as fuck. Come on, don't play yourself.
That whole night before the show, Dahvie kept coming into the crowd to talk to me and my friends. He had even offered to buy us a soda if we needed it. I declined because my father told us to never take drinks from strangers. The show started and I was pulled up on stage many times, had my hand help a few, and was given the mic on multiple occasions. You can see me in the Vanity Show Part 3. After the show, Dahvie caught me as I was about to leave and asked if I wanted to have dinner with the band. My dad was picking me up and it was quite late. My dad would not let me go, but honestly, I think that was the best thing because who knows what could have proceeded afterwards. After that, I noticed my friend Bailee was swaying. I asked if she was okay and she just nodded. It wasn't until 2 years later that she came out about Marco buying her a drink and pulling her into a kiss without her consent. She didn't tell me because she was scared that I would be mad at her. He also asked her for naked photos of herself after the show, and come to find out he had asked many of my friends the same thing. When the band broke up, I wasn't surprised, nor did I care. I checked my Facebook and that's when Jay came out about his abuse. I was appalled and disgusted. I defended Dahvie's name multiple times as a kid and I regret it full-heartedly. I made fun of Jesse Slaughter, otherwise known as Damien, as a kid, and it pains me to even say I didn't believe him. Dahvie only had so little evidence against him at the time of me being a fan and nothing backed it up. Now that many people are telling their story, I feel much remorse for my actions and realized that I experienced grooming myself and how far it could have gone. I started telling my story a year ago, and forgetting Dahvie followed me on social media, he blocked my entire family, my cosplay page, my Finsta, and anything that was related to me. It scared me how much tabs he had kept on me and how he knew immediately that it was me when I would make a new account. I hope some of these situations help anyone come forward about Dahvie's grooming and disgusting actions. Real quick, I just want to say thank you to Alana, Bailee, and Dahvie for Prison for coming forward with the stories that they told me. Again, these were all people who reached out to me. It's important that if there are more people that have been affected by Dahvie Vanity and anybody in relation to Dahvie Vanity, that you come forward and tell your story. You have to recognize that these things are not inherently your fault. You didn't choose for these things to happen. So let's go ahead and move forward with Bailee's story. Hi, my name is Bailee and I'm Alana's friend. I wanted to discuss with you one of my experiences at the concert with Dahvie Vanity. Well, it was one of Dahvie's friends, but I wanted to explain my situation. It all started with me and him talking by the stage, and then he out of nowhere kissed me without my consent. I didn't think much of it and I was too shocked to say anything. He then was just dragging me around the show. He bought me a drink and I think he spiked it. I saw that the bartender poured out the drink in a cup and gave it to me, but I think Marco spiked it when I left it. He sat me in his lap in the back sitting area of the concert with his friends and we were hanging out and laughing. He asked me about my age. I told him I was 15 and he didn't seem to care that much, but he was like, "Oh, maybe you shouldn't sit in my lap." It sounded like he was joking because he still continued to drag me around and act friendly towards me. She also mentioned in this next statement that he continued to try to make contact with her several times after this, and it made her feel pretty awkward. And then we have some stories from Dahvie for Prison, who reached out to me on Twitter as well after my last video. And this individual said, "I remember hearing about his behavior as far back as the early 2000s, but he just went by Dahvie back then. In early 2014, when he was touring with New Year's Day and William Control on the Fight to Unite tour, I was introduced to him by a former friend. Without saying a word, Dahvie shook my hand and then went to kiss it. He ended up slobbering all over it like a dog. I was so disgusted and ran off to the bathroom to wash my hands thoroughly. The show was at the Key Club in Los Angeles, and during his set, he took his pants off and was running around through the crowd in his underwear before climbing on the bar and mooning everyone. From what I understand, he was banned from returning in the future. After the show, he was chasing his young friends around with a Sharpie, trying to draw and write on their faces. I believe he even drew a dick on someone's face. After I left the venue, he attacked my friend unprovoked with witnesses around. She has yet to speak up about this publicly. About a year later, he was outside of Bar Sin in Los Angeles beating up a female friend and she was crying. A friend of mine happened to be passing by and tried to help her. Dahvie put his hand on her face and pushed her backwards while screaming something like, "Mind your own business, cunt." Her then boyfriend tried to fight him, but it was broken up.
No! 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 No!
Hey, stop!
Robert! Stop! Robert, stop!
Stop, Dahvie, stop! Robert, stop, Dahvie, stop! Dahvie, just go. Stop!
Just fucking stop!
I'm not doing nothing! Stop, Robert, stop! Dahvie, let's go.
And then Dahvie for Prison proceeded to tell me that the end of my video reminded them of something a former friend of his had told them. When Dahvie had Blood on the Dance Floor merch for sale in Hot Topic, which sadly sold extremely well, he was using that money to pay off victims for their silence and drop cases against them. At the end of that Javon Monroe video, I talked about some speculations that maybe the victims had been forced into signing NDAs that would have prevented them from speaking out against Dahvie Vanity had he convinced them that there would be legal ramifications if they said something. That was all speculatory, and it seems like some people seem to think that I was saying that NDAs protect you from sexual abuse allegations, and that's not what I was trying to say at all. What I was trying to say was, imagine being 13, 14, 15 years old, and you've just been sexually assaulted by someone, and then they present you with a document saying, you have to sign this, and you can't talk about what happened, or I'll sue the piss out of you. And you're 13, 14, 15, 16, and you don't know any better. That's all I was trying to say. I didn't say that they did sign NDAs. It was purely speculation. So I kind of wanted to clear the air about that. But clearly Dahvie for Prison here seems to think that Dahvie was using merch money to pay his alleged victims into silence. So there is something going on there. There's absolutely no reason why Dahvie has managed to get away with this for as long as he has without him having some kind of interference somewhere. He's been doing something to prevent himself from getting arrested. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Like I said at the beginning, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think down below. Reach out to me on Twitter if you have more information that you think is important, or if you have a story that hasn't been told that could be imperative. All of this is important. It's incredibly important. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.